Hello, I'm Randy Kleiner, the co-founder and CEO of SeriesFest, and welcome to the Q&A for If I'm Alive Next Week in our digital short series competition. We have some very exciting guests today from the cast and creative team, so please welcome with me Robbie Sublett, writer, director, actor, producer, Jennifer Morris, writer, director, actor, producer, stars Joyce Van Patten and Peter Friedman. Thank you all so much for joining us. I always like to start this, rewind, and go back to the beginning. So I'm going to kick it over to you, Jennifer, to maybe talk a little bit about what the genesis of this project was.
Well, the genesis of this project is that it's basically an adaptation of what happened to us in real life. Robbie and I had always wanted to do our own series. We had actually spent time developing another script with a bigger production company, and that didn't end up getting made. So we were like, the next thing we do, we just want to do on our own. So I always say this, I had read something with Ava DuVernay, who was like, when you're writing the thing, start with what you have and go from there. So I was like, well, we have an apartment. I have a real character of a mom. And that's where we started from. So Robbie and I wrote this series. In our brain, it was going to be, should I talk about that? Or
sure.
Yeah, like a half-hour show. But we only really had the resources and manpower, woman power, to make it in the short form. So we were like, let's write and craft the episodes in short form. So all the episodes are between 6 and 9 minutes, very intentionally. And we wrote actually 6 episodes. We shot 4. With these 2 lovely, amazing actors in 8 days over a very hot summer.
2 years ago.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, almost to the day.
Wow.
And we had, you can tell how you always wanted. Yes, yeah. I'm talking. Go.
Go ahead.
That's the genesis.
She did it, folks. We lived with her mom for 5 years.
Yes.
And our daughter in the same 2-bedroom rent stabilized. That's where the material comes.
And a lot of comedy ensued.
Comedy or drama, depending on the day.
Exactly.
That's amazing. I can only imagine. And Joyce, how did you get involved in the project and come to this?
Well, they asked me, and we had worked together. Robbie and I were in a play together, and Peter also was in the play.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
We were all in the play.
That's
so,
right.
He's adorable and wonderful, and so is she. And it just sounded like something that would, and I liked it. I mean, it was funny, and of course, the woman character is, to die for. It's like a part that you would kill another actress for getting. So I was as happy as I could be, and it really was nice. I mean, it sounds like we're just saying that and everything, but they were wonderful. We spent a lot of time in their apartment. We weren't in a studio or anything, so we got to know each other really well, and it was great. And I'm happy that you loved it so much. That's so nice.
Absolutely. And what play did you guys all do together where you met?
What play was that, Peter Friedman?
Her Requiem by Greg Pierce.
My Requiem,
At
right.
Lincoln Center, yeah.
Her Requiem or my Requiem?
No, it was hers, not yours.
In your brain, Joyce, it was your Requiem.
Yes, it was at Lincoln Center, and I saw it. I was in the audience for it, and they were all amazing.
And I thought about this today, which is maybe of no interest whatsoever, but it's interesting to me, is that we did that play, don't you know, at the beginning of the 5-year stretch of us living with Jenny's mom.
Oh, yes, that's true.
So when we went into the rehearsals, when we first got to know each other, that was pretty much when this story of the series that we're now premiering began.
I didn't know that.
So it's like
Bookends.
I don't know. I was just I don't know. I was packing that tobacco in my pipe and taking a couple drags on it, and it made me feel new things.
Well, you mentioned you shot for 8 days, but how did you kind of approach the shooting process? And I know anything when you're working with small budgets and independently, there's a lot of all hands on deck, and it's certainly a unique experience, and you guys, as multi-hyphenates, were doing it all. So, how did you approach the production process?
That's a meal of a question.
It is.
I'll try to give an appetizer of an answer. Aside from Peter and Joyce, who lent us their incredible gifts very generously to see the show that you watch, we had a lot of amazing behind the scenes help from equally talented producers, like line producers like Lily Groom, Kate Hopkins, and Emily Crone. They introduced us to a ton of crew who were used to working fast, used to working at a high level, and were game for what the project was. We had an incredible cinematographer, Jason Vandermeer, who I worked with like on a Hershey's commercial.
He actually does all the digital shorts for Saturday Night Live.
Yeah.
And Robbie had worked with him like
a million years ago, 100 million years ago. And I sent him the script the same way that I sent it to JVP and to Peter Friedman. And I said, look, Jay, is there any chance in hell that you want to work on this with us? And he read the scripts and he said, hell yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
And once he came on board, he really kind of opened up a lot of resources for us, because in the way that we know these amazing actors, and that was one thing that we brought to the table as producers. Jason also had a lot of contacts from his years at SNL, so he was able to really take them.
And yes, and I think for this, I actually had before we started shooting, had a call with an artistic director of a theater company who also did his own amazing web series. And he had really great advice for me, which was like, I've spent years working in downtown theater in New York. We have a theater company. And he was like, approach it like you're doing a show for the civilians, like all hands on deck. You're calling lots of people. You're wearing 100 million hats. Like you're getting locations. You're helping with the crew. You're reaching out to your actors. So that actually really kind of switched my mind. I was like, oh, I'm just putting on a play, at the Ohio downtown, and then, but in a different form. That was like great advice.
We had talked to this other producer at a pretty well-known company who was like, it's funny because when you get these huge budgets, sometimes it shrinks your imagination because what the actual face value of those things are in real life. But when you have no money and you're totally ignorant, you ask for things that you have no business asking for. You have even less business getting, but it makes you really creative just about how you're going to get that shot and how you're going to get that location and how you're going to get those amazing actors.
I love that you say that, because I think that's one of my favorite things about watching independent television and independent film as well, is I think sometimes when you have restrictions upon you, whether they're budget, timing, or whatever, it forces you to be creative in a different way. And the product, I believe, ends up being even better because of it. And what a great example here. So, okay, you shot for 8 days in summer in New York. We can all imagine what that's like. Peter, what was your experience? I mean, obviously you've been working on massive sets and very recently, and you kind of come in on this run and gun indie shoot. And what was the process like for you?
Totally delightful, because they knew the parameters of the commitment. So we're all in for the party of it all. It's shot, we mostly shot on I specifically remember a street in New York in the 80s. And what I take away from it is, here's Joyce, who's standing in the middle of the street screaming her guts out in the middle of a day. And I wouldn't have the nerve to do that. But it's not a problem for her. She's just wailing in the middle of this New York City street. It's great.
And also, not for nothing, Joyce we asked her, there's a shot with a
Crane.
overhead crane shot that our DP helped make happen. And Joyce on the second day of shooting is like, first day, our DP was like, you clearly never directed before. You've decided to start the day off on New York City street
with a steady
with
cam.
a steady cam and a crane shot. He was like, you are like clearly insane.
Yeah.
We just had never done it before. So, but Joyce was so gracious and amazing and laid down on the sidewalk. And she was like, I'll totally game. She's like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to just go there. And that was really incredible.
Yeah, these two amazing, their scene was the first day. It was first up in the day.
Yes.
And they set the tone, I believe, for the entire shoot.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's totally true.
You hear that, Peter?
I heard it, but I don't believe it. It was a long shoot. It was 7 other days after that. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
Things happen.
Joyce, there's a lot of themes of ageism in here and things like that. What kind of inspired you in your role, and how did you approach that? And were there, things that came out of personal life or that you've experienced that kind of, informed your character?
Well, I didn't really think about this a lot, but it reminded me of my mother in lots of ways. And my mother was made all her children, there were only 2 of us, become actors very young. First we were like children getting pictures taken, and then we were on the stage very young. So that kind of energy, that kind of belief, was Jo Van Patten. So she was with me pretty much every day.
I love that. What do you guys, what's next? So you said you wrote 6 episodes, you've shot 4, you get planned to shoot the next 2, or what is kind of your next trajectory with the project?
That's a great question.
It is a great
I think, it kind of goes back to something Jenny said earlier. I mean, our dream is always to flesh this bad boy out into a full half-hour show. I think that the characters, the story, certainly can hold it. So that is probably our immediate focus. And then in the interim, we have scripts that are written, ready to go. And as soon as this, the restrictions of shooting in a pandemic kind of dissipate a little bit, because I think that particularly the people in the indie budget sector of shooting things, all of those very necessary and important restrictions and protocols that are putting all actors and crews back to work right now makes it really tough on the smaller budget folks like us. But we are very open to the idea of like partnering with another a distributor or a studio if they wanted to keep shooting it in the short form. So we're open to it. We're hanging out.
We're going to see which way it goes.
Yeah,
I mean, we've been doing a lot of work developing out what it would look like for a half hour, what the seasons are, what the, breakdown would be. But then on the other side, we already have this stuff written.
Ready for short form.
And are ready to go on that. So we're kind of like,
and when we told
both tracks, if that makes sense.
When we told Joyce about SeriesFest, she said, "Fantastic. When are we getting back to work?"
It really was a pleasure. It really was a pleasure. I know, people say crap like that, but this is actually true. It was a pleasure. Everybody was lovely, except the little girl that played my daughter. That's a joke. That's a joke. It's a joke.
Amazing. Well, that's a perfect note to end on. Everybody out there, our audience listening, come on, help get this project. We all want to see what happens next. Short form, long form, any which way. We definitely want to see more. And thank you guys so much for being here. Again, thank you for bringing us this. Our audiences are going to love it. And we're just so excited. So thank you so much and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.